Hey, what's up, 515? This is video number 2, going through James chapter 2, which is your video for this week. We'll have discussion questions for you in the comments below or the description if you're watching on YouTube. So, James chapter 2, there's really two major sections that he's got going on through this. He's got the section about preferential treatment and favoritism, and he's got a section about faith and works. And for me, when we were preaching through these were two of the most important and most difficult passages to preach through because I think they really tackle some important things. So let me just give you a few thoughts on each, and then I'll let you guys discuss this more in your studies. So in regards to favoritism, I think this is a really interesting passage, especially for when you think of a group of young people like yourself who maybe experience a lot more bullying or prejudice or preferential treatment in your lives, whether that's being picked on in school, people only wanting to hang out with the cool kids, whatever it might be. And I think one thing that's really awesome to see here is that he gives us this reason of why we're not to show favoritism. And I think when you think about the gospel, you realize that God didn't show favoritism to us. God didn't just pick the rich or the really awesome or the really talented or the really athletic or the best looking people to be a part of his kingdom. He chose us, and we don't exactly know why he chose us, but he chose us without a measure of who we are and what we've done or what we can bring to the table. And we know that Paul makes that really clear in his gospel, that it's not by our own works that we're saved, that we were chosen to be saved. We are saved only on the merit of Christ. And so if God doesn't show us that favoritism, why would we show it to others? So really excited for you guys to talk more about that in your groups. So this kind of leads us into an interesting next section when you think about faith and works, and the understanding that if it's not our works that save us, if it's not the good things about us that save us, then why does James say something here that seems to be the opposite of what Paul has said in various other verses? And you guys are going to read one of those in your group. He says, listen, if you have faith but no works, that faith is dead. So we talked about real faith versus fake faith. And this is a really crucial passage. It's one of the most confusing passages in the whole Bible, I would say, but it's also really important for us to understand. And maybe I'll just give you the illustration that I did in our sermon, and then I'll let you guys dive in. So I think a lot of times people assume that James and Paul are fighting each other like this, right? That, no, it's faith over works, or it's works over faith. But in reality, I think they're standing back to back, fighting against different enemies. And so Paul is fighting against the enemy of those who believe that they could accomplish salvation on their own, that their works were good enough to bring them closer to God. And James is fighting against the opposite. James is fighting against those who are just, man, I'm saved by grace through faith, and I don't have to really show any good things. Another illustration might be helpful is thinking about a fake plant versus a real plant. A fake plant can look really, really good on the outside, but if it doesn't have genuineness, then it's not going to produce fruit. And fruit was what the Bible calls these good works in our Christian life. Fruit is the evidence of our salvation. And so unless you're a real tree, unless you have real faith, you won't actually see fruit growing. And that's what James is saying here, that if you are actually a real tree, you will produce fruit. The works will come, they will be there. And so enjoy jumping into this passage with your group, and we'll see you next week.